Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. Today, we are doing part 2 of Polyphony. God damn it, Myth. I'll never get this word right. Polyphony?
I
Is
believe
that
that is the pronunciation, is polyphony.
Okay. I'm going to call it polyphony because that sounds funnier and cooler. No, this is the seasonal one that came out with each week of the weekly mission that you would get from Failsafe throughout Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. And last time we read through most of it. The funnest one for me last time was the very last entry we did, which was the As a Stranger Give It Welcome entry, just because the end of that has just so many little blips to it that are just like, oh my god, this is amazing. So that was definitely like one of my favorite portions out of this book. But yeah, so we're gonna jump right into it and get to the next one in the series, which is Glass House. So Myth.
Yeah. So, we're going to wrap up kind of the second half of that book, which is going to start with chapter 6, Glass House. Just as a little bit of a disclaimer for everybody, due to the nature of the time crunch in which we had to record this, there will be 0 edits. So, you get what you get,
I'm
and
gonna
you have
say
been
everything wrong.
But no, we'll do our best, but forgive us for some little things here and there. However, without further ado, Glass House. As a stranger give it welcome before was about that like rush of the Vex of the echo hitting the Vex network and all the various beings that live within the network that are not Vex, seeing it as that opportunity to like rise up and out, but only one could get there first, and that one was the Maya Sundaresh we met as the conductor.
Well, and I had a real quick question on that one too. Now that you reminded me, um, are so those others are still stuck?
Yep.
Right.
As far as we know,
They're not like this. Like Maya getting to it didn't like delete. Like they still exist, right?
I don't see a reason why they wouldn't.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I
That was my
there's
fear, is that like
yeah.
whoever touched it first got out and then just like deleted the rest of them, like because it's I don't know how long a person can exist in the Vex network.
Well, I mean, the various copies of the Ishtar Collective have been there since the Golden Age.
And they're still going because
Right.
they're the ones that are talking through the anomalies in the the
Encore.
exotic mission Encore. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So if there is an expiration, it's a real long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So long as you are, I guess, strong enough to maintain your identity in that space.
2,000 plus years at
Mm-hmm.
least.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, so that's where we left off. And Glass House doesn't exactly pick up from that, but just to give you a reference of where we were coming from. So this is chapter 6, and it goes like this. Maya Sundaresh picked an iridescent flower from a well-manicured flower bed on a mossy lawn outside a cobblestone cottage. She hardly noticed the slight, unrealistic gloss of the petals or the brief digitized hitch that acknowledged the flower's removal. Nearly perfect. The VexNet was accepting their code inputs. Chioma was right. They could, in fact, build a life here that consisted of more than neon blocks and dissecting minds. Maya thought back to a year prior, if time meant anything anymore, when they were still lost, searching for other iterated copies of themselves. If Chioma had not convinced her to stop, to stay, to cease obsessively pushing forward to find an end that she could not define, she saw what became of other Mayas who could not let go of that drive. But now, under Chioma's direction, they would build a haven, a safe stopping point for anyone traveling the VexNet to rest and gain their bearings. She hoped one day they would reach outside and bridge the divide between this reality and her old one. But that world had never truly suited her. She found its lack of objectivity exhausting. It was quiet, and over time, they had learned how to manipulate the network for their own purposes. So long as their changes weren't too large or too disruptive, the Vex let them be. Perhaps their meddling had made the Vex curious enough to study them and see what they would do. At any rate, this had slowly become a life Maya felt aligned with. She was happy to pick her flowers and study the embedded law of code within the network that studied her. Maya, come quickly. I have found something. Chioma's voice sprang up over the radio. What did you find? You wouldn't want me to spoil the surprise, would you? Maya rolled her eyes but smiled. No, I wouldn't, she said under her breath, shifting dense brush aside as she stepped out into a simulated forest to make her way to Chioma's voice. Chioma, mouth wide in wonder, knelt over a wrecked goblin frame, its shimmering radiolaria gurgling from the containment vessels and split tubes. An arc discharge had heavily damaged it, and the radiolaria sizzled as it welded circuits and plates back into working order. It worked. Maya nearly tripped over her feet as she rushed to kneel by Chioma's side. Do you see how? Maya nods. It's repairing itself. Chioma swatted at Maya's hand, too close to the radiolaria. And the micro? Maya side-eyed her wife, but continued. Individual, pluripotent organisms, specializing and homogenizing as needed, like they're learning, unlearning, uploading, deleting. Maya grabbed Chioma's thigh, treating digital and physical matter synonymously. How? We're digitized flesh. So if they can, we could change. Like we changed this place, theoretically. Maya looked to Chioma with pride. My, you. She met Chioma's eyes. She looked up to Maya from the twitching frame. Brilliant. See what happens when you listen to me. And Chioma kissed her, an excited peck, and then drew back. Things improve, Maya smirked. Now we have our radiolaria sample. What would I do without you? Spiral, Chioma said, pursing her lips to contain another grinning smile as she harvested the radiolaria. Now we follow your plan, Maya. Yes, with radiolaria, we can bend the network even more. This place will be a beacon for all of us who find themselves lost. Maya grabbed Chioma's hand, brushing dirt from her knuckles. Thank you for stopping me, for making me stay. I don't think I ever said those words. You never had to. Chioma stood, still holding Maya's hand. Come, one last surprise. See the sunrise that I made for you. There's now an ellipses showing that his time has passed, and we find ourselves in a very different space. The conductor looms over a shredded exo-Chioma frame. Dead and inoperable, a ragged face hangs by synthesized threads of skin from a metallic cranium. She coaxes the face plates from the exo's head with a wave of her hand and then gently lifts a scalpel from the operating table. This one is damaged beyond what a standard reinitialization can handle. Repairs are required. The conductor's metallic hand draws the scalpel across Chioma's prosthetic flesh, and she drags the skin back from the abdomen and applies a clamp. She trades the scalpel for a syringe and injects radiolaria into the dormant core and cerebrum. The new radiolaria splinters out in every direction. Dormant radiolaria within begins repairing the frame again as she operates. See how it assimilates the dormant microbes. Isn't it fascinating? She thinks. Who made this for you? Certainly not me. The conductor thinks, rubbing the skin between her fingers and assessing the damage to the exochioma. Still, fine work. A fine specimen. Chioma's eyes snap open. She tries to wrench her restrained head back to look down at the searing pain in her open metal stomach. She tries to scream but produces no sound. Get it all out. When you're done, I have some questions. And that's the end of that.
What the fuck? What the actual fuck? That went dark real fucking quick, Myth. I was not ready for that.
It's the
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I was not ready for that. I was okay. I was like, okay, this is a neat entry. Like in the beginning, I was like, this really is a neat entry. They have somehow figured out. I say somehow. We know that when they were first observing, first observing and studying the Vex itself, back on Ishtar, back in the Golden Age, back on Venus in the Ishtar sink, at the Ishtar facility there.
Mm-hmm.
We know that while they were doing that, the Vex itself and the radiolaria within the Vex created the 227 copies, at least at a minimum 227 copies, and then that it too was studying all of those. Well, then we also know that the team brought in a war mind, because the war mind was the only thing that could decipher and tell which one of these copies was the original and therefore was, quote unquote real, although all the copies also had some semblance of realism, like they still existed, they were still real,
Right.
each in their own right. Which again, kind of applying that to present day, the anomalies that are in the Encore mission, like they even refer to themselves as like .25, .57, .183, like, so like they are referring to themselves as copies as well. But like, we know that at some point in time, all those copies kind of like made a pact with each other, and they all dove into the VexNet.
Yep.
Throughout the first part of this entry, we're seeing the things they can do in the VexNet. The VexNet is essentially the world's greatest sandbox. Like, if you can, and again, they state here too, like, as long as your changes aren't too big or too disruptive, the Vex don't care. They're just like, it's not bothering us, so it's not like stopping us from becoming more Vex. Like we're still upload, like we don't care. Do all your changes. Just don't create a world or something like that. Don't go nuts, right? Like don't do something that's going to actively draw Vex attention. And so like they've literally created everything. Like they've created this flowering garden space to be like this like way station for anyone traveling the VexNet. So they have an assumption here that like other people are just going to start jumping in and essentially matrixing up and like hey, we're jacked into the VexNet now. Um, which I mean, when you think of the Cloud Arc, it's I mean that's exactly what the Cloud Arc is.
Yeah, I think they're aiming more at the other
You
Ishtar
think
people that are already floating around the Vex network in places.
sure.
I think they're trying to like create a safe zone is the idea.
Gotcha. I was thinking that they were just like thinking like anybody's going to start riding this VexNet, but that is probably more correct and does make a hell of a lot more sense to be like, hey, because we know that in Encore, like they're communicating with each other, like
Right.
they are finding the other versions of themselves, and they are specifically trying to stop Maya from getting to the other Chiomas. But like throughout this one, it's mentioned how Chioma had to convince Maya to stop doing something. What was it?
To like to stop continuing forward, to stop pushing the like, well, we need to keep going. We need like essentially she where the Chioma we know from quote unquote our reality or our Niamuna at least,
Sure.
um was the Chioma that never like tried to stop Maya from doing anything. She was horrified by it, but
But she's still just going to let it
ultimately,
happen.
yeah, either enabled it directly for a little while, and then when she didn't have the stomach for it, she left. But that didn't prevent Maya from doing anything, and at that point, Maya was
Right.
probably too far gone. And
Oh, 100%.
this is a Chioma that would like stood firm in the like, if you keep going, this is going to destroy you. We need to stop focusing on, you know, finding whatever this like end state is that you're obsessed
Yeah.
with.
Essentially, stop and smell the flowers.
Yeah, it literally in this case. Yeah.
Yeah. Stop and smell the digital flowers. That's awesome. Like that it's interesting too because like that truly shows that like the 227 different copies really were on like 227 different paths.
Right.
And they truly didn't like yes, there were some similarities every now and then, but they really truly were they as soon as the Vex created them, they are now 227 different um identities and personalities and I mean, for all intents and purposes, souls. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they are real, and I'm gonna put that in quotations because I mean, at what point in time does the simulation stop becoming a simulation and become real? Like how where do you draw the line there? Again,
Yeah.
kind of pulling from the Matrix. Like how do you define real? The smell, the look, the touch. Like those are just neuron impulses transmitted to your brain and interpreted by your brain. So if I can just inject a signal and make your brain think whatever, then that's real. Like yeah. Um, but yeah, it's super cool throughout this whole first half to show like the relationship that I truly believe they had previously to previously to Neomuna for sure. Um, Possibly previously to being split into 227
Hmm.
different copies. Um, and then of course stumbling across the radial area in there and going, oh look, the radial area is actively repairing this thing. Like this, it's going through and like it's welding in microcircuits. Like this is amazing. Like this is so cool. And then of course they both of them are like, oh, how can we use this to further on this way station? Like how do we improve this place? And then it gets fucking dark, Mick.
So the thing that we have to remember when we're talking about the 227 different copies of Chiomas and Mayas and Dr. Shims and uh, Dwayne.
Dave. I
Dwayne
can't
is the name, by the way.
Dwayne. Okay.
Uh, but the other 227 copies of them is that there came, as soon as the conductor came about, Chiomas across the network were almost instantly being hunted.
Yeah.
And it's different when you know, outside of the network, in a reality where like you can still be hunted down, people can still follow you and track you and like actively go after you, but when you're in the network and the conductor is the one going after you, it reality itself tells them where you are.
Yeah.
And they can instantaneously have Vex at that location.
Yeah.
Like, there isn't escape possible, really. Like, the whole thing is never stop running.
Yeah.
I
Literally,
and
like these other copies cannot, like, if they
yeah.
stop for even a millisecond, this, like, if they stop at this way station, that's it. That's game over for them. Like, that, they are dead. They are caught. They're done. They're dead. And the messed up part about this second half too is it sounds like the Chioma that was there. I mean, it straight up says dead, inoperable,
Mm-hmm.
and the conductor just brings it back to life.
Well, because the Chioma that was there had a exo body, which we know is fueled at least in part by radiolaria,
Right.
and the conductor has seemingly complete control over radiolaria. Uh, and so for them to be like, okay, the radiolaria that's dead there, I'm going to just reactivate it
Just fix it.
or replace it, or
Because it's not even from the point of view of we're past the point of view of an ethical or humanic
right,
of a moral or anything.
right.
Now the conductor at this during the second half, the conductor is purely looking at this thing in front of her, because from the conductor's point of view, this is just an object. It's no longer a personality or anything. It's literally an object that she is manipulating on a molecular level to do what she wants it to do. And in this case, she wants that thing in front of her to answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
So she, in her mind or her eyes or whatever, she can find the real Chioma. But it's like, we know that she was way past that. Like, at some point in time, she got
Yeah.
so obsessed that it just became just, well, you're not perfect enough, or you're not the exact thing what I'm looking for. Discard. Like, but the fact that she's over here, like, it brings to mind two things. One, did she kill the exoframe and then bring it back to life and ask more questions, or did she just find it? Like, was the exoframe just dead and she starts bringing it back to life? But it's a
Yeah.
weird exoframe because it also has skin.
So I think I think there's a couple correlations between the first part and the second part of this. I think the idea is that the Chioma from the second part is the one we saw in the first part.
Oh
And
shit!
they were talking about, like, think of what we can, we're just data. We're just like
Yeah,
simulated bodies. I'm wondering if the implication is they understood enough about how the Vex build their bodies to assemble their own like
their own
Vex
fleshy
skeletons,
bits.
but
Yeah,
they were the data that inhabited it.
yeah,
And so they had physical form in that way. And because the conductor is like, I wonder, like, who made this? Like, I didn't
yeah.
make this. And so I think that's implying that this is the Chioma and presumably Maya that like studied the Vex to try and create physicality.
Oh, I see. Who made this for you? Certainly not mine.
Yeah.
Implying that the whatever made that flesh was not the conductor's radiolaria,
Yeah.
or even the conductor's vex.
That's how I took it. That this is something that has
Okay.
been created in the network, but is outside of anything the conductors had a hand in.
Okay.
Uh, so that leads me to believe this is the same Chioma across both stories. Um, and the other thing that is kind of more symbolism than anything is we see in the first part, it is they both the first and second part utilize the same idea of controlling radiolaria to create things.
Right.
The first part is the like the sane quote unquote Maya, and the idea of we can use this to create something beautiful and meaningful and long lasting, and like be a rest area, be a safe place for those
Right.
that are braving the network. And the second part is a Maya that took a different path and is using really all of the same tools, but is
Sure.
using them for brutal and horrific acts.
Her own fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's this like dichotomy of, again, it's not necessarily the tools in the hands, it's how they're being wielded.
I mean, it's the same. It's the same logic we can apply to light and dark,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Like light and dark is just tools. It's the person who wields them that's going to determine if and again, it doesn't. The tool itself isn't evil, right? Like
Hmm.
light and dark isn't evil. They are literally just they're tools, they're forces, they're what. It's the same thing here. Like radiolaria isn't evil, but using it in this way seems pretty fucked up and evil,
Right.
but it's still just a tool at the end of the day.
Right. It's not the radiolaria. The radiolaria doesn't have a moral compass. It
Right.
has this need for create things,
Yep.
and it
It's just
is the
doing what it
one that
does.
tells it what to create. That is
God, that's messed up though.
it is.
This whole second half of this is just like holy shit.
So we've touched a couple times, and it was explained in the seasonal story, this madness that is kind of prevailed over everything that the conductor has done, that Maya has done.
Why do you
Uh,
I guess that brings up that question. Why why does it seem cuz this isn't the first crazy Maya we've come across.
no, it's not.
The other crazy Maya being the one that was with Clovis, right?
Clovis.
Like
Yep.
why is Maya so pro? And then I swear, and again, I correct me if I'm wrong, Myth. I swear there was like a card or a reading or something where like something whispers to Maya in her head while she's standing in Neomuna,
Hmm.
and then she says something. I know you and I talked about it before, and we couldn't remember where that card came from.
So that's veil containment.
Veil
There.
containment. Okay.
Um, I'm fairly certain it's in the veil containment messages where Maya makes mention of she knew that the thing was called the veil,
Right.
and when Chioma asked her how she knew that, it was essentially like, it told me.
It told me.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
So I mean, like, why is it? Why is Maya seem so? I mean, the only person that has any type of like subliminal messaging in the mind is Nezarek. Like, does that imply that like the veil is so closely connected to Nezarek that he has some type of influence over it?
No, I don't think so. And we've seen whispers from the dissenters. There's
Oh, sure,
been
sure, sure,
like there's lots of things that aren't Nezarec related that have had like a certain level of psychological warfare to them.
sure.
Um, I unfortunately, we still don't know enough about the veil to really
Sure.
begin to theorize on more than just like spinfoil theories.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Uh,
Absolutely.
there it would appear that the veil has some level of sentience, either of its own or that is transmitted through it from elsewhere, that
Sure.
is pushing this idea of conductor and chorus, and has identified itself as the veil. Beyond
And
that,
for whatever reason, it just
we
picks.
don't know.
It seems like it could just pick the most strongest willed person there, which I feel like would be Maya of her whole team. Like
Yeah. I think
for
it probably picks whoever it believes would be the most likely to accomplish its goal of
the
conductor
end goal.
chorus.
Yeah. 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 Yep. 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 I like that idea. The same way that the whispers to Clovis kind of like they found the one thing, the one person that had like the means to be like, I'm going to start building things that, in my eyes is helping humanity, but in the Whisper's eyes is like, no, you're building something that's going to eventually stop the witness.
Yeah. Uh
I just think that's super cool
it
that like
is.
if that's really what the dissenters were doing, the K1 anomaly dissenter was doing, it was so like it knew that even at that point in time that the witness was the worst thing that could ever happen to this universe, and it started just poking ever so slightly at and I mean, we say what we say about Clovis. He was the most brilliant mind of his time. Um,
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, like that's like that's yeah. But they really did pick like the right person, because I mean, became Guardians, and then from there we're able to help defeat the Witness. Like, humanity might not have continued on without Exos. I mean, maybe a little bit, because we would have the Awoken, who were able to escape um, for 12.1 billion years. Um, and then clearly there are human guardians, like Drifter's human.
Right.
Is it Eris? Eris human, or she Exo, or not Exo? She's a
I think
Ikora's
we don't
human.
know. We don't know with Eris because she was described as, trying to remember what they described her as a child. But she was born in the tower.
In the tower, yeah.
Yeah,
So she's
or
presumably
in the
human
city.
then,
Yeah, yeah, human or
because
like,
I don't know that Awoken still, like, have there been Awoken that have been born after?
yeah, yeah. They're Earthborn Awoken because the Awoken had the splinter when they
The
first
split. That's right.
entered
That's right. That's
the
right.
solar system. There's the ones that are like, we
The
need
ones
to
that
go
wanted to
help them
go
now,
home.
and
Yep.
then
Yep.
there were the ones, Mara's side, which is like, we need to make
We
sure
need to
we can take
regroup.
care of
Like,
ourselves before we start taking care of other people.
sure.
Yeah, so like there was that splinter, and then there were the Earthborn Awoken that didn't have a connection to the reef.
That's right.
So she could have been awoken still, but presumably was born in the city.
But yeah, but all that's is just to say that, like, the whispers there to have told Clovis to do what they knew what could be done to kind of like start the process for like helping create the idea of an exo, and then for Clovis to be like, see, this is this is the continuation of humanity, and then then the collapse happens, and I feel like the dissenter there, like the K1 anomaly, is kind of sitting in the background going, ha.
Yeah.
that that didn't work how you think it did it? Well, we'll see in 2,000 years if this pays off.
Yeah. But going back to the question of like, why
Why Maya?
Maya?
Why does it
Why?
drive her nuts?
Well, I mean, we see that this is universal. I think this is a universal trait of Maya, because
It seems that
in
way.
this same one, they say like, we saw what happened to other Mayas that did not let go of
Yep.
that obsession.
Yep.
Uh, and what it comes down to, and we could say the same thing about Clovis. Um, there's this old kind of phrase or term that I've heard, and I imagine other people have as well, that in order to be a genius, they have to be a sociopath.
Oh, sure. Sure.
And
I've heard that before.
while I don't think that is correct as presented, in a really fucked up way, the only genius, the if you take a group of qualified genius level scientists, the ones that are going to make the most impact are the ones that didn't care about what it took to get their results.
I mean, that's sociopath level thinking there.
And Maya and Clovis were both
They have that level
absolutely
of,
brilliant,
yeah,
and
and
had that level of drive, clearly, of they Clovis was Duvargon from like childhood, as far as we know.
right.
But Maya had that drive and had that ability that, if it was not tempered by a Chioma or someone else, she would follow the same path of like, the ends always justify the means.
I mean, we saw that happening in Veil Containment.
Right.
Like that she literally turned into almost as all shit. Like she almost turned into a Clovis Bray there. Like that's
She did, as far as
yeah.
I'm concerned.
I can't even say like almost. You're right. Like because there was a whole scene where she was like, these exos, like she almost like crying. She's like, the exos are dead, and Maya just didn't care.
Yeah,
She was
Maya's
just
like,
like, bring in
okay,
the next batch.
get the records from these so we can understand what happened. Bring in the next batch. I mean, and she literally pulled a Clovis in creating a exo copy of herself as a backup. Like,
Oh shit, she did do that, didn't she? That's the whole reason Lakshmi exists. Oh my
yeah.
god, did she turn full? Yeah, I think you're onto something there.
So,
I think you're onto something.
needless to say, I Maya, I think, has always been teetering on that edge of unstable.
Yeah,
I and has never really cared about anything other than her work. And I do genuinely think Chioma, I
I think
like,
Chioma is like it's the same thing we see with Saint and Osiris. The two of them ground each other.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like without one, the other just goes fucking insane. Like we saw that like when Osiris first started looking for Saint. I mean, he built a time machine out
yeah.
of a DeLorean. No. Wouldn't that have been awesome
That
if he had like a flux capacitor in the middle of
that would
the
have been pretty cool.
sundial?
The
And he's
sun,
just like
the sundial is just a racetrack with this car going around and around.
that's all
Yeah.
it is, just round and round and round. Sorry, this is what happens when you tell me there's no edits. Now I just get weird ideas.
Uh,
Um, but I mean, he literally went and made a time machine to be like, I'm just gonna surf the timelines and I'm gonna find Saint. And then the same when Osiris went down after being, taken out by Savathun and being like Saint went super depressed. But he was like, I'm gonna do everything I can, and we made this weird Nezarec tea. Like,
yeah.
what the fuck? Like, we've done some fucked up shit to help with some of this stuff too. Like,
I am
yeah,
still waiting to see how that comes back and bites us.
there's got to be something there, right? Like, there's got to be something eventually that like we're just screwed now. Um, but yeah, like we see this here too with Chioma and Maya. Without the two of them, and it definitely seems like it's more one sided, right? Like it definitely seems like Chioma needs to be there to ground Maya. Because without that, Maya just does kind of take on that Clovis level of like, well, fuck it, and justify the means. Whatever I need to do to make it work,
Yeah.
whatever I need to do to move on, to progress. That's the name of the game. It's progress. Like make it do. So, yeah, it's interesting here to see that like that level of groundedness um, is there.
Yeah. So, speaking of the two grounding each other, we're gonna read the next chapter here, which is titled "Mind, Body," and it gives us a glimpse into the beginnings of that spiral for the conductor into their descent to what we met them as. And it goes like this: My first thought when I wake, I must tell Chioma what happened. What a thrill! Every aspect will fascinate her. Entering the veil felt like an existential disrobing, the willing extraction of myself from my matter. Shedding my body was as a slip and diving into an infinite well of collective thought. She will marvel at how I was able to survive, buoyed by countless threads of connection and universal consciousness. How I rode the wave aloft, keeping me constant, myself as my own, to stand separate and singular from the gravity of the immeasurable collective. She'll be so proud. She'll come with me a second time. We'll dive through the worlds together, loved and beloved. Neptune can wait. I left the reach of the veil's threads when I collided with the familiar angles of the Vex network. Didn't I? Yes, I did. When I find her, I must reassure her that I remain myself. It was so tempting there, tumbling from the memories of a being that groans in staccato radiation to the mournful dirge of a planet itself. The universe is aware, it is alive, and I rode its riptides far enough that for a while I worried my voice may thin into the chorus. But I was able to stay together through the only conviction that remained, that I am true. That although felt immeasurable mystery in that place without form, I remained Maya all the same. Even among an endless universe, I was always distinct. A sensation, impact, pressure, contact. I'm not certain I have hands, but whatever part of me exists is touching an object. It woke me. I am me, and I need to sit up. Everything is fluid, but the urge to rise sloshes what parts of me I decide are mine, upwards, forwards. I have no eyes, no heart, but I feel for my edges and sense they are endless, liquid expanse that plunges into the seams of the planet itself. Unnerving, intriguing. It seems I am matter again. I recall Lakshmi too, a fine false mask, and hold its memory in place as I cling tight to the object in my hand. Shape me a body. My outline condenses. I define my silhouette, my limbs, my fingers. What good was 1.5 meters of heartburn at night and high cholesterol? My body is now a vast and flawless sea. As I form my neck, I lift the object in my hands, and it shapes in turn. I wear it as a mantle, as a prize. I reach through my new body, and at the core of me, I am filled with a familiar acidic wriggling, and the sour milk of the Vex, and I purge them out. I am not Vex, I assert, and they spill from me as bile. What I am left with is an exo frame, and a mantle at my neck, and a new voice in the back of my mind. I finish my eyes and see the current of milk dormant at my feet. I am unharmed, and still I am not Vex. They respond to my command, I realize. My hand at the mantle around my neck. Tell me how long has passed since I last encountered the Vex. They do. Through the Vex at my feet, they whisper it in unencoded ease. The number is gargantuan. I begin to panic. It is impossible, and my first thought is of her. Tell me where Chioma Essie is. They search, and they tell me the woman who holds my heart in her hands has laid in a grave for hundreds of years. In a rage, I tell them to mutilate one another, and the milk in my feet boils in violence. My Chioma would not depart so mundanely. My Chioma would come find me. My Chioma is still here. My beloved does not rot in a grave. The world itself is broken. Time itself has snapped. Chioma, my world, my life cannot be dead. She must have joined the Vexnet again. She would have searched for me there, sorted among the hundreds of copies of us to find the true version of myself, her Maya. So too will I search. I love her. I would know her in the darkness of a cave and the blinding glare of a sun. She is unique in all ways, precious and without fault. I know the real Chioma is alive. Primary query. Find the true Chioma Essie. I command through my tears. She is out there, searching for me in turn, and I will find the Chioma I already love. I know this. I know this. And that's the end of this one.
Dude, this one is just it's just sad. You know? Like it's just I fully understand what's happening here. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
this helps me understand how she just dissolved back into Vex Milk and went back into the thing. Like
Yeah.
she is literally forming herself out of Radiolaria. Like it she's building her own body. Like she is full consciousness inside the Radiolaria now on a physical plane. Now actually in um our reality now,
Yeah.
actually, I guess on Nessus essentially. um I guess she could have ended up anywhere that Vex Milk was.
Well,
Like
not,
Nessus just has a fuck ton of it.
yeah, anywhere on Nessus. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's where the echo hit. Like,
Oh yeah. That's where. Okay. Okay.
and that's what kind
Now
of
the
kicked all
two
this
of
off.
those are the kick. Okay. The puzzle pieces are falling into place now, Myth. uh Echo hits there. Echo also hits there in the Vex net, but the Echo doesn't actually hit the Vex net. You know what I mean? Like it, the Echo exists in this reality. It presumably would be simulated. Like if it was observed
Well,
by a Vex, it would be simulated by a Vex.
the echo is paracausal, so I think that takes simulation out of the window.
Then they couldn't simulate it.
Um,
Yeah, full stop.
but I
They could
think
observe it.
they could observe it and, make estimates based on the data that they can't simulate.
Sure.
Um, kind of like how we observe a black hole by
Right.
the fact
Yep.
that there are things
Yep.
missing.
Yep.
Um, but I think in this instance, like, it is a object that exists in our reality, but it's kind of weird because it's made based on Ikora and what Bungie devs have said leading up to the episodes. It is an object that is the physical embodiment of memories, which would be darkness energy to me. And we
Sure.
know when dark touches Radiolaria, it becomes something new.
Right.
And so if it hit Nessus and it went all the way down to its core, it hit Radiolaria.
It touched it. Yeah. Well,
And
and then thinking on that too, Radiolaria itself is the VexNet.
right.
Like that's just the it's like a server in a closet, right?
Yeah.
Like the Radiolaria is the server in the closet. We can't like see the little electrons passing between each other. We can't see packets of data. We can't see that physically happening in front of us. All
Right.
that's happening on a digital level. So that's essentially what's happening on the other side of it when that thing came through. It hit Nessus and it hit the server stack. And so in the digital side of it, in the Matrix, in the VexNet, they saw what was interpreted there on the inside.
Yeah. Like there
And
there
it
was
just so
a
happens,
thing that
yeah.
happened that
And that's
interacted
a
with the net.
well, and that's a hard thing to conceptualize, right?
It
Like
is. Yeah.
a physical thing existed in both this reality and a digital reality at the same time. That's essentially what happened.
I would hesitate to say it existed in both places. I would say a physical thing existed in our reality that was able to directly affect the digital reality.
Okay.
So I
I
don't
like
think it's a
that.
case where there were two like versions of it. I think it was a case of, this thing hit and everyone that was in the network instantly recognized, okay, something completely unknown just happened at that corner of the network.
Yeah.
Let's go see what it is. And the
Start
first one that
stretching
got
for it.
there was Maya. And by her, traveling through the radial area that were literally touching the physical object, it did whatever darkness does when it hits radial area. It turned it into something else, and that something else gave her this sense of self and like
Yeah.
physical body again.
Yep. Yep. Well, not even like physical body, just like gave her sense of self on this side of the looking glass, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then
Like
she was able to use that to craft
yep.
a physical
Yep.
body. Yeah.
Yep. And that's what we're seeing here. She's manipulating the radial area to just start building her a body. And it's funny too, because even the radial area is like, oh, body, yeah, no, we understand that. We're gonna make you a hobgoblin. And she's like, fuck you, buddy. I am not Vex. And
Yeah.
they instantly acknowledge that. This is what like fucks with me a little bit, is like that sense of like, you know, I'm filled with a familiar acidic wiggling, the sour milk of the Vex, and I purge them out. I am not Vex, I assert, and they spill out from me as bile. Like she literally like she has such a command over the radial area
Mm-hmm.
that she can tell it now, like, no, I am not Vex, and it instantly responds. Like that blows my mind. The level of control she actually has over the radial area, which again explains a lot of how she's able to just like form Vex structures out. Like
Yeah.
she can form whatever the fuck she wants, essentially.
Yep.
Like
Because remember,
it's
Vex, like the radial area are the actual Vex. They are what she's controlling. The bodies, the microscopic bodies of radial area.
right.
But those bodies of radial area can still manipulate other physical elements and matter however
Yep.
the fuck they want. Like that's
Yep.
how they rebuild the planets.
Yep.
So if she's like, make me stone golems, they can go find stone and build stone golems in probably fractions of a second.
Yep.
It can literally be whatever she wants. As long as the materials are somewhere that they can be delivered to her at that space, it will happen.
That's why, like radial area to me in the hands of Maya it's like the greatest. It's like the greatest evolution of Siva that could ever happen.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, this is like Siva on crack, is what this is. Like radial area truly is like the greatest thing to be used for building blocks ever. Like fully manipulative, um, molecular, molecular level networking between individual Vex that also operate on a hive like mind, a hive likeness, so they all kind of think they can think as a group collectively. But then when she's able to like manipulate them out and make them think individually, now this is really starting to evolve. This is truly like it's scary is what it is. It really is scary, the level of control that she has here.
Yeah.
And then like when I'm curious as to the number they told her. Like,
Yeah.
because what is time to the Vex?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm assuming the number they told her was like similar to like Tron, like it's told in like number of cycles.
Right.
Well, the number of cycles, like 100 hertz, that is 100 cycles per second. So if you counted that every second for 2,000 plus years, that number is going to be fucking huge. We don't know what frequency the Vex what radial area operates at. It could be 100 hertz. It could be a million
It could
hertz.
be. Yeah. Like
With
they
the
do a
level
lot
of
of processes. Yeah.
That's what I'm getting here. Like the level of processing that they have, I'm thinking they're at like a billion hertz. Like, so a billion times a second they are cycling. Like, that would not be unimaginable to me. And
Yeah.
so again, multiply that by every second for 2,000 years, and that's probably the number they started to spit out at her. And she's just like instant panic, like has no idea how to process that. So she truly doesn't even really know like where or when she is at this point in time. Because what I'm assuming, here's the other part that I'm assuming, right? So this whole thing starts with her being able to form herself.
Mm-hmm.
Where did she come from? Is this the Maya that uploaded herself into the Cloud Ark? That there's that one veil containment where
Mm-hmm.
Chioma comes in and Maya's just gone,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yeah.
is this that Maya?
She thinks she is. Because that's what she's describing in the first part was the process of entering the veil and like leaving her physical form behind.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
said entering the veil felt like an existential disrobing,
Yep.
the willing extraction of myself from my matter, shedding my body. I
So that's exactly what happened. And she says Neptune can wait. Yeah, that's exactly who this is.
mm-hmm.
This is the real. Oh my god, that means she. Okay, I just had like a fucking brain puzzle piece connected together. If this is the real Maya, then the real Maya was Maya 12, right?
uses the name M Sun 12.
So was it really the real Maya?
Well, that's what we talked about last time when we saw that she signed her like personal log as M
Yeah,
Sun
M
12.
Sun 12.
Is was it ever the real Maya
That ever even went to Neomuna.
or was it a simulated version
Oh
that
my god.
got out into our reality somehow, the same way the one that took control of a Vex frame did for Clovis,
Dude, what
and
a mind fuck.
just believed the entire time that they were the original. And
What a mind fuck.
even here, she goes to great lengths to convince the reader slash herself.
Herself. I think it's more herself. Like
Yeah.
the one sentence like I left the reaches of the veil's threads when I collided with the familiar angles of the VexNet. Didn't I? Yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Okay, who you trying to tell, lady?
And it's like, I must
I
reassure her
am
I remain
me.
myself.
Yeah.
Uh,
I am true. Like who are you trying to convince here?
yeah. Well, and it's not only like I'm the real me, it's also like kind of in that standard way of like they're kind of full of themselves at the same time. They're like,
Yeah.
you know, it's only through my, insurmountable will that I was able to remain the same amongst an endless universe, that I was distinct and could not be cut. Like, get over yourself.
Get over yourself. Get over yourself. So again, coming is kind of a two-part thing here, right? Like all 227 copies could have had 227 different uh, things happen to them through their lives.
Right.
Who's to say that? Who's to say that like one of them didn't follow the same path, didn't have had a collapse in their version of their selves, and then survived on Neomuna and then connected into the VexNet, like
Yeah.
that this could be what happened, and then just paths got crossed, and then this one popped out in our reality. So yeah, no, it's that's kind of mind blowing to think that the Maya that did go to Neomuna might not have been Maya 0, right? Might not have been OG Maya.
Right.
And the thought that like multiples of those different realities could have had some of the same end points, or some of the same, maybe not end points, but some of the same connecting tissue, right? Like certain things that happened in multiple different realities. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's only so many left turns you can make, or so many right turns you can make before you end up back where you started, type thing. So yeah, and again, the similarities between all the Mayas and all the Chiomas and all the everything, like, yeah, this is genuinely fascinating to me, because again, even this Maya recalls Lakshmi 2 and was like, oh yeah, this was just a thing. Like,
Now there's a wild statement though. She recalls Lakshmi too.
oh shit, it was never
How
called Lakshmi 2.
how did she know that Lakshmi got reset?
Because she went in, and then the Lakshmi was just kind of like roaming around the place, and Chiomi was pissed because she was like, that false thing
Right.
is crap, and so that's when she ordered it to be like removed, like dump it off world.
Right, but that was after Maya's death. Well,
Right.
presumed death
Maya's
at the time.
disappearance. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Like I'm
How does
maybe
she,
I'm
oh
misremembering.
man.
Maybe I'm getting my wires crossed with the timeline a little bit, but I am fairly certain that Lakshmi was only ever Lakshmi 1 while
I think
Maya
you're
was
right.
alive.
100%. 100%. Because I specifically remember, like, you and I were trying to figure out why she is Lakshmi 2. And the only reason why she would become Lakshmi 2 would be for the Neomunians to be like, we don't want the rest of the universe to know we exist. So we're going to reset you, but we're going to reset you and remove the memories of Neomuna from you.
Which begs the question, and
How does this Maya
maybe
know that there's a
that's
Lakshmi too?
maybe that's a hint. Maybe that is a small little change in this Maya's reality, that Lakshmi got reset while she was alive for some innocuous reason, and she knew her as Lakshmi 2 instead of Lakshmi 1.
Which
Like,
again, thinking back to the beginning of this entry, her last memory was entering the Vexneck,
yeah.
which would have been during those veil containment stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
So it's possible that it's also something that was missed, and it totally possible that the on the higher level of this, at the like Bungie author spot, there was just, they're like, yeah,
Somebody
Lakshmi is
overlooked it too,
Lakshmi
like, oh
too,
yeah,
yeah.
Lakshmi too, the same person.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, certainly a possibility. But I like the idea that it's a hint, that it's
yeah.
it's
It's
an
a hint that this
intentional,
might be a false Maya.
yeah.
Like this might be a Maya from a a slightly different reality, but close enough that there are similarities.
Yeah.
I like that
Uh,
idea. 100. I'm going with that idea. That's
the
canon until told otherwise.
tell told otherwise. The other thing that's kind of interesting here, and we kind of knew this already, but it's made very apparent that all of this, like, grandiose, you've whittled away thousands of years and done nothing with it, and like, where is all the advancement, and why are you only just surviving, and things could be so much better, just let me make them that way. All of that messaging comes from a very deep setted denial of reality.
That's
Uh,
exactly what it is. Again, even the idea of time has just, like,
yeah,
she is convinced that she just went in and came right back out.
yeah, yeah. She's like, I took a dip in the pool and got up, and it was
Yeah,
2,000 years later. Yeah,
yeah. I mean that would fuck with somebody's psyche, especially again if we're theorizing that this person is a genius, and then the idea that like a true genius has a little bit of psychopath in him or can only be psychopath type thing, like that would fuck with her psyche 100%.
so it offers some context, and some, like, it offers a very good understanding of, like, how the conductor began almost immediately going the wrong direction.
It
uh
does that. This one entry adds a lot of context to the entire season.
yeah, there are a few times where I will be like, it always more story that is told in game is always better, in my opinion, but
Sure.
usually it's like, it's little auxiliary stuff where it's, it fleshes out the world, but it's not like hyper critical. This is one of those ones that I really really wish had been in the game, as like a little
Like one of
intro
those like drawing
cutscene, or
ones,
yeah,
like that little
something
black and
like
white
that.
drawing thing, dude. That
Yeah.
if this card was in one of those little like black and white like little mini scenes, dude, this that would add so much context to the season. Yeah,
So
no, this is the one. I'm with you on this one. This is the one time where I'm saying this lore entry in particular is so much more important than borderline anything else we've ever read.
yeah, as far as like putting
Relevance to the
stakes,
story.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
giving
yep.
stakes, giving context, giving motivation that feels like like something you can understand, may not agree with, hopefully, but you understand, okay, I know why this character is doing what they're doing. And it's not just the kind of slightly hand wavy, stuff that we
Well,
got
and like now,
elsewhere.
after thinking of it through the eyes of this, thinking of Maya through the eyes of this entry, now I just feel sorry for her.
Right.
Like she truly doesn't understand. Like, or she's just taking it upon herself to just like factuate falsities to just try to justify like, no, this is wrong. This is what should be right. I'm going to make it right. And again, she doesn't have a Chiyomi there to be like, hey, you're a little obsessed right now. Calm down. Maybe have some tea. No, she has nothing. She just has herself and her radial area. And so now she's lost it. She's truly lost it.
Yeah. Now, making her more sympathetic does not condone any of the actions she
Right,
did, but
right.
she's
Like if the
still kind of
witness
went on a
was,
murder spree.
if the witness was like, "Oh, but I just wanted to find my people. I just wanted to be a better people." Like, no, you still tried to unmake the universe.
Yeah,
You
tell
dumb
tell that
shit.
to the other thousands of civilizations you successfully stamped out of
The
existence.
Kogu don't exist anymore because of you.
Yeah. But no, it offers something more than a mustache twirling villain.
Yeah, 100%.
So, all right, but enough of that. We'll get on to the next one here, which is Home to Roost, is the name of this chapter. And this one goes like this. During the day, the Hall of Heroes is busy with activity. Neomuni in mobile avatars gather in knots, their conversations a low rumble under Quinn Laguerre's personally curated ambient soundtrack. Even after visiting hours, the hall isn't entirely quiet. Pukas rustle through the foliage as water rushes into the pools, and Osiris paces back and forth across the carpet, avoiding Sagira's memorial. New footsteps sound in the distance. Osiris turns away from the door and toward a pool. The steps are quick, impatient. Nimbus. They slow as they climb the stairs to the hall. Osiris. There's a wad of leaves clogging a drain. Osiris contemplates it. He's never asked who cleans out the puka ponds. It's late. I thought you were done for the day. Nimbus's voice is a cheerful buzz echoing against the high ceiling. I was. I am. His report has been sent to the Vanguard. It will be some time before Ikora responds. There is no reason for Osiris to pass on this chance for some rest. Still hanging around here, though. Everything good, old bird? Nimbus looms over Osiris. Rather than giving himself a crick in the neck looking up, Osiris starts pacing once again. I am thinking about the conductor, about what we learned. Nimbus ambles along, taking one step for every 3 of Osiris's. Want to talk about it? Not particularly. This is something he doesn't want to unfold before anyone other than Sagira, his second mind, his other heart. He had wronged her, just as he wronged Saint. You sure? Everyone says it's easier to carry a burden when someone's there to carry it with you, and I'm pretty strong. Nimbus flexes an arm demonstratively. They show every indication of being ready to wait all night for Osiris. Osiris looks up, exasperated. They give him a huge wink. The two of them have spent a great deal of time together researching first Strand and then Maya Sundaresh's history. Nimbus deserves his honesty. Osiris crosses his arms and scowls up at the light fixtures. After I lost Saint, I pulled another version of him back into the world. I was selfish. I did to Saint what Maya Sundaresh did to Chioma Essie. There, it was said. "Oh," says Nimbus. "That's, heavy stuff to be dealing with, my man." Waiting for their judgment is agonizing. Saint is home in the tower feeding his birds, readying himself to yell into a microphone at fighting guardians, likely reshelving all of Osiris's books in the wrong place again. And Osiris is far from home, in the wrong direction, and hoping for understanding. All right, so Nimbus draws their words out, processing. The conductors been yanking versions of Chioma out of the net by the handful and killing them. Yes. And when Saint was gone, you went after him into the infinite forest, and this could have broken really bad, not just for you, but for like the whole world. Yes. So, now this is just me, Nimbus says. But Maya found her partner, right? Tons of her. And she like mulched them. And you went looking for Saint, and you brought him home. Nimbus's voice slows as they think through their point. What would you have done if you found Saint and he said, thanks, but no thanks, I'm good here? In the moment, Osiris knew he would have stood in front of Saint and argued till Osiris starved to death and Sagira had to resurrect him, and then done it all over again till he truly understood Saint's reasoning. Osiris's steps take him to Sagira's memorial. Her cold shell gazes up, sightless. She'd give him such a lecture if she heard him now. Left him there, I suppose, if it was what he truly wanted. Saint 14 was a legendary, hard-headed figure. He knew his own mind. Nimbus comes up to Osiris, looming again. It seems to me you brought Saint back because you missed him, not because you missed yourself. What Saint could say about you seems pretty different. They stand together, Nimbus's gaze tracking up to Rohan's memorial. Osiris should call Saint. He should return to the tower. He's spent quite enough time so far from home. There aren't a lot of chances for a Cloudstrider to find love, Nimbus says wistfully, their eyes reflected blurrily in the memorial. Your story's so romantic. How did you and Saint make it work for so long? How can I find something like that? And for all that being asked earnestly for advice based on his relationship is a horror the Vex themselves could not have ever predicted, Osiris can't reject the plea in those shining eyes. And that's the end of that one.
Oh, I like Sweet One Smith. This is so cute. But it also does explain who Saint is.
Yeah.
And that time travel is not actual time travel.
Yeah, like even the dial was not true time travel.
Yep. It just pulled from a different reality. Just a different left turn in the infinite forest.
Mm-hmm.
But again, whatever was like, those are still, and this is a hard concept. This truly is like the closest thing we have to relate it to is like go watch The Matrix, right?
Kind of,
Like
yeah.
that's like the VexNet really truly is like the greatest sandbox matrix that could ever exist. Um, so the things in it are still real for all intents and purposes, but like yeah, it's it's intriguing to me here. This kind of I don't want to say this hand waves away, the perfect paradox. Like the whole idea of like Saint gave us the gun so we could give Saint the gun later so he could give it to us and disassemble it. Yeah. It's literally two different guns. It's it's one or it's one gun that has been pulled from a timeline and given to another timeline type thing. But no, this is really sweet. Like this is a neat little interaction here between Nimbus and even Nimbus here. Like, I mean, Cloud Striders only live for 10 years, and then that's it. They poof, that's it. They're gone. Like, how could Osiris and Saint love each other for so long? And like, and again, I think that's a hard thing there for Osiris to even admit it. Like, like
Mm-hmm.
after I lost Saint, I pulled another version of him back into the world, and that's and so like yeah, I mean it sucks, but like at the end of the day, it's still his Saint. Like it's the same thing that Saint says in the dialogue stuff. He's like, I am Saint. Like it doesn't matter if I'm a slightly different Saint or whatever. Like I feel how I feel. I know how it is. And again, that also kind of explains. I say also kind of it absolutely explains why he has a different memory of how the two of them told each other they love each other. Like this is truly a different Saint that is with us. It is from a different timeline, but everything about him is still Saint. The key, and I think that's something to kind of take into um, thought as well when thinking of like the different Mayas and the different Chiomas and everything. It's the same thing with like what makes a guardian a guardian. Like why does a ghost choose what it chooses when it reses a guardian? It's that drive. It's that like underlying things that never change from reality to reality. So Saint still has that level of personality, that level of hard-headedness and everything about that. And that exists throughout all different versions of Saint. And so even if the memories aren't quite the same, even if what actually happened, the reality in those different variations isn't quite the same, it's still, for all intents and purposes, the same person. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. And even more so now that like memories have merged, kind of
that's it.
thing.
That's the other thing too, is the fact that he's literally sucked the memories out of the other one. So now he has just kind of like two sets of memories floating around in his brain.
It is a bit of a weird like existential question of like,
Yeah,
is he a different person now? Is he the same person with these other
with different
memories?
memories.
Like,
Yeah,
especially when you're in EXO and it's kind of more data than like thought yeah, it's a
it's
whole nother
fucky.
thing.
This is the one time I'm going to say like because video game. That's why.
Yeah,
I
that's
know I've
the
used it at least
easier
once or twice
answer.
before, but like, yeah, no. But I do like that this card here does actually have another like an explanation of like, yeah, because this whole time I've truly been curious if that really was a different Saint. Like they
Yeah.
hinted at it a lot through the in game dialogue and stuff that this really was a different Saint. This just I mean just he just flat out says it like
Yeah.
this is not the real Saint. The real Saint died. The Saint that existed from our reality is dead. There's a tomb of him in the Vex net, like not even in the Vex network. Like, is it? Wait, is the tomb in the Vex network?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was like a physical. That was the same thing with like this is a physical representation of a digital space or whatever. Like yeah, like. But I guess it truly is in the Vex network. Those piles and piles and piles, dude. I forgot how many Vex were in those piles until I
Yeah.
went back through that scene. Like, holy fuck!
He was killing Vex for
There was a
years
lot
straight.
of Vex. There are mountains of Vex in those
Yeah.
piles. That's a lot of Vex. Well, I'm glad we had a sweet one after we had
Yeah.
the fucked up one.
That's
That
usually
one
how it
broke.
goes, right?
That
It's
other one,
like,
that's how it has to go. Otherwise, I'm just broken for the rest of the night.
yeah,
I can't
there's
sleep. Then there's issues there. Yeah.
peaks and valleys of storytelling.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're going to read the final chapter of this lore book and the final reading of this episode. And it ends where it began with Failsafe. And if we recall, Failsafe was having some power issues before, where it was saying like low power, 4%. And she kept just kind of like, yeah, okay. Uh, but keep that in mind because it's going to be slightly important here. But this one is called Tech Support, and it goes like this: Incoming message. Failsafe's system alert pulled her attention from Nimbus, who is excitedly pacing the helm while delivering a spirited recounting of the last Iron Banner finals. Saladin had been routing the feeds to Neomuna, and the Cloud Strider was thoroughly enraptured by the high drama, judging by Failsafe's internal chronometer, entirely too enraptured. She shrewdly routed the message alerts to her external display screen. Nimbus, buddy, she began. Hint taken, Nimbus grinned, spreading their huge hands wide. I'll let you get back to your whole being a ship thing. If you see Osiris, tell him Jisoo Calorando is looking for an interview about his sick bird hat, or no, say that the Cloud Arc is losing integrity and only the biorhythms from like a truly old and decrepit dude will save it. I'm on it, Failsafe said, and pushed an ASCII image of a thumbs up to her display. Nimbus laughed and gave Failsafe two enormous finger guns as they transmatted out. Failsafe accessed her messages. She batch approved the bounty requests from the Guardians, still securing Nessus for the remnants of the Conductor's Vex. She puzzled next over a message from the House Light scribe Ido, as it did not appear to contain any discernible request. She marked it for non urgent reply and sorted it into one of her new subfolders: Socialization Platonic. Another message was a scheduled reminder to familiarize herself with the helm systems, which were woefully unprepared for the worst case scenario she had encountered with the Exodus Black. She would have to update the safety systems, bring emergency transmat relays online, calculate possible terrestrial touchdown sites in the unlikely event of a forced landing. Unquestionably important work, but for the first time, she felt it could wait. And Failsafe eagerly processed the next series of critical system messages. One unintended but entirely welcome consequence of her increased Guardian activity on Nessus was that the resident Fallen were being actively discouraged from raiding her wreckage. Without the constant incursions, her power systems were slowly beginning to build a reserve charge. Low power alert, 6%, the warnings blared, and Failsafe beeped with satisfaction. There was a sudden burst of golden flame, a scattering of reflected figures, and Osiris transmatted onto the helm. Failsafe, he said brusquely as he walked toward her console. Osiris, she replied, and opened a swirling readout of polynomial splines. Osiris and Saint had been journeying into the Nessus Vex network and searching for the conductor, one simulated branch at a time. Osiris highlighted portions of 17 intersecting wavelengths. Set is cleared, he commanded, and Failsafe changed their color to a bright lime green. Osiris zoomed the display out, and the green became a pixel-wide dot amidst the swaying fractal tangle of the network. 17 down, infinity to go, Failsafe said. Osiris sighed wearily in agreement. And the odds that these 17 have already been overwritten are, he asked. Failsafe gave a low-pitched beep. Do you need the real math on that? Because it's 99 point a whole lot of nines. Osiris shook his head. She's somewhere in the network, along with the echo of command. And even though he knows the chances of finding her are impossibly small, Saint is continuing to search. He absently drummed his hands on Failsafe's control panel. What do you think he'll do if he finds her? She asked. I believe he will. How shall I put this? Osiris said. The faintest of smiles played over his face. Saint doesn't have much patience for anyone who makes those he cares about feel helpless. Osiris's gaze wandered to the research bays, and Failsafe dispensed a synthesized mealworm into Captain Jacobson's enclosure. The proto-frog blinked slowly and then devoured the grub in one clumsy gulp. Osiris nodded in approval. Generate a fresh set of network coordinates, please, he said, and Failsafe whirred in response as numbers filled her screen. She sent them to Osiris's datapad with a reassuring tone, and he turned to leave. Osiris, she said, Nimbus misses hanging out with you. You ought to visit him sometime. Osiris tightened his lips. Very well, he said, then hesitated. Failsafe, be thankful that incoming message. The alert filled Failsafe's display screen, and Osiris stopped himself with a half shake of his head and a smirk. I'll leave you to it, he said, and vanished in another flash of golden fire. Failsafe sorted through her messages. Low power alert, 7%, read the critical warning, and she dismissed it, happily. And that's the end.
No, another good. Yay! It's not all dark and gloom and evil and god dang, man. This is cute. This is super cute. Failsafe is growing on me. I say she's growing on me. I've always really loved her little like I like her non-filtered side. Like I feel like every time she talks to Keidel, she just turns the filter off, and then Keidel's like, "Thank you." But yeah, I like this socialization platonic. I'm gonna start making new subfolders myself. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
So, the one thing I do want to point out here, actually, two things. One might just be Bungie being cheeky and like canonizing transmat effects. But the fact that Osiris is like appearing and disappearing in these like golden fiery reflections.
oh sure. He just has that set as his transmat effect, right?
Right. Like
That's what he's applied to his ship, right? Like that's.
I mean, that's what I use, and I don't like it. It looks cool. I don't blame.
Oh, you use the same one?
I use the same one. But it does seem a touch odd. The lightless guardian is appearing in fire and whatever. But I don't think
it's
that's
just
something
a
to read
transmat effect,
into.
Myth. All it is something you apply to your ship. He's
Yeah.
just applied that to his ship. That's all he's done.
Osiris spent some silver and went to Eververse.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it is. He went to like Eververse is canon in the world. Like,
oh, it is.
It
is.
exists.
Yeah, like Glint has talked about, like, oh, maybe if I'm, if we're successful in this mission, you'll buy me a new shell and whatnot.
Yeah.
So like it's canon, and this is probably just the transmat effect, but I want to point it out because it is maybe something that would bring some questions otherwise.
It does sound like he's like reflecting himself in.
Right.
I'm more on the lines of you of like, he bought the transmat effect. You know what's even more fucked up? He had to buy his own transmat effect.
Yeah.
That's what's the most fucked up part about it. Is he's like, people have been doing this, people have been copying me for 10 years. And I've been doing this since before Destiny existed. Why do I have to pay for this? And Tess is still like, 1,000 silver, whether you like it or not. Please pay me the silver or leave. So yeah,
Uh,
I'm with you on this.
yeah.
He had to pay his 1,000 silver, his $10 to get his own transmat effect applied to his transmat.
Yeah. Say the only other thing that I want to point out here that may become more relevant in the future is that Failsafe is slowly gaining power.
Yeah.
She started out at like 4%, I believe, at the beginning of this book, and she's now up to 7.
Yeah.
Which, like, oh man.
Maybe she'll get her railguns back too.
Now
I,
that I want to
she
see.
keeps mentioning it. I'm just like, what the fuck, failsafe? Why are you so obsessed with your railguns?
Because she wants to finally
She wants
take
to
the fight
shoot shit.
to the fall.
She doesn't want to melt them like little ants.
No.
I still fucking, I fought myself so hard when you read that. I could not, that first entry in this book is just hilarious.
It is.
But
It
I
is.
love it. It makes this world feel real. I love these readings. This was a good book to have. And
This
again,
was.
there's certain entries in here that really explain what's going on in the background here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm glad we've actually kind of we dove into this. I'm kind of sad that it took us the whole season to get to it, but we kind of needed the whole season to get to it because
Yeah.
that's how the seasons exist now. So we're going to see a little bit of a shift in stuff. I know there's a bunch of stuff that was announced. I want to say like literally today, or over this last week for the next episode, which is at the time of this recording in a week. So yeah, we'll see how those stories play out and how the timeline works with how the release of that goes.
Yeah. No. So, um,
Shout outs.
I yes, so we definitely have some shout outs to get to. Also before that though, want to just kind of toss this out there. We've talked about it before, but I some kind of future of how we may see scheduling going. I We don't know
Yeah.
how the like we have some ideas for things. I know we talked about wanting to maybe do stuff around the weapons and armor of the past of episode 1, but that feels less and less relevant now, especially a lot of those stories there are kind of in a similar vein as what was in this lore book.
Sure.
um
And they don't really
if
like explain anything that's like going on. Like this lore book
Yeah.
really helped explain the season.
Yeah. So I don't know if we'll do those or not. We'll see. And with the impending release of Revenant, the next episode, uh we're going to see a big shift in how they are delivering the story. And that is that the entirety of each act is going to be available on the day 1 of that act.
Yeah.
Um, so on one hand, that's going to give us a whole lot of hopefully very like meaty story bits to kind of sit and talk about right away.
On the other hand,
On the
I have
other
to shoot
hand,
through it.
well, there is that. There is a case of like that's going to be a lot to try and work our way through, especially
And the
with
dungeon
our
goes
current
live literally
commitments.
that weekend.
We have the dungeon. So all of this is to say, we may have some inconsistencies in our episode release schedule. We're really not sure how stuff is going to go since we've kind of caught up with all the old stuff at this point and
Yeah.
are now on that kind of cutting edge of as stuff comes out, it's kind of the next subject to talk about. So I don't know if we're going to stick to the weekly thing. We're going to try our best, but there's also going to be a time period where we got through the dungeon, we got through Act 1, and there's who knows how many weeks between that and Act 2. And there's no, like, we don't want to create filler and fluff for the sake of creating filler and fluff.
That was the main thing that Myth and I kind of went back and forth on, but was universally agreed on by both of us. Like we want this. We like what we do. We really enjoy telling these stories, and we want to tell the ones that we feel like need to be told. Like all these little things that are happening in the background that make Destiny feel alive. we don't want to just like say, oh, we're just going to cover a random ass story thing to just cover a random ass story thing because oh, it's we have to do a weekly thing. So yeah, what Myth is saying is like we may not have a weekly release. We may have 2 episodes or 3 episodes or something like that. Like we still want to cover the things that we like covering. Like we're gonna have a dungeon episode. That's just gonna
Yeah.
happen. The big thing with the dungeon is like contest mode is active all the way through the normal time that we would normally record. So we kind of have to get through the dungeon. So yeah, so um, there may be a little bit of a break in some of our recording and in some of our releases. But yeah, we're gonna try to keep open communication with all of you guys to kind of say like, hey, this. Don't worry, we haven't forgotten about you, just like you probably haven't forgotten about us, and y'all are probably itching for more. My thing that I keep coming back to is like, keep hitting us with emails of theories and shout outs and stuff. Like some of these things that you guys are thinking up are just fucking amazing. Like they blow my mind. You guys are really thinking, and it shows in some of in some of the stuff, the ideas and stuff you're shooting to us. So like we may just have a couple episodes where it may just be like a short little like 30-minute thing of like, hey, somebody shot us an idea and we're just going to dive into that for a second. And then when we get through that, it's like, oh, well, this is only a 30-minute episode. Cool. That's all it was. Or we may just have nothing on a week. Like there may just be nothing to talk about that week. And Myth and I are okay with that.
Yeah.
We don't do this to make money. We do this because we enjoy it and we want to keep enjoying it. And so that's what we're going to do.
Yep. So I know that the prospect of not having weekly episodes may be disappointing to some. I get it. I'm sorry for that. But the reality of it is, like, if there's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to talk about, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, waste your guys' time trying to like drum up something out of nothing.
We are not fluffers. Those are specific people that exist in specific professions.
In a very different industry.
Very different industry than what we are covering here.
But yeah, so just wanted to get that out of the way, kind of, make sure everyone knows what's up. I imagine we're gonna still have weekly releases for the next little bit here because stuff is ramping up pretty quick.
Yep.
But just getting it out there early. There'll probably be some breaks between episode acts at the very least.
Yep.
But without further ado, let's get into some shout outs. So we have one that comes to us from an email that was sent. And they say, speaking of fan theories here,
yay!
They say, hi guys, I have some theory fuel for you. I noticed in the Prophecy dungeon, there's some imagery of circles with triangles on the inside, just like the portals to the Pale Heart. I think it was in the final boss room after damage phase, you turn around to look at the entrance where you drop down into the room. Also, the boss is the Kel Echo, and the mechanic of the dungeon being collecting light and dark motes. And most obviously, the name of the dungeon is Prophecy. Do you think maybe the 9 were warning us of the final shape? Could this be all coincidence? This could all be coincidence, but I'll leave it to you to connect the dots. Can't wait for the episodes on the seasonal stuff. You guys are awesome. Keep up the amazing work. Well, thank you.
And it's signed Lumpy Cabals.
And I know it's been a little bit.
That made me giggle.
Since you submitted this, so we've gone through the seasonal stuff now. Hopefully you enjoyed it.
Surprise, it's here. We did it.
Yeah.
I do like this idea. Like we poked around with the idea of like what Prophecy was actually prophesizing, right? Like the fact that it's fuck, what is those people? Elixni. Wow, that brain fart. The fact that it's an Elixni, right? Like I didn't even think of the name. The fact that it is Kel Echo, and that it truly was predicting the final shape, or even like the echoes. Like, yeah, we always thought of it as like it's predicting something, I don't know what the fuck it's predicting.
Well, I think a certain level of it was always pretty apparent because they just come out and say it right at the end that like the nine are telling you light and dark are the same. Like
Yeah.
that light and dark are not moral, they're just
Yep.
tools and it depends on
Just
who's
tools.
using them. So I think that has always been pretty obvious. Some of the iconography though, like the pyramid within the circle, and those I do think were probably little Easter eggs, little breadcrumbs for like what is to come.
Because
I
Prophecy came
know.
out at what? At the end of. Was it before Stasis?
Uh, I
Was that Arrivals?
think it was before Beyond Light. I
So
think.
Arrivals.
Yeah, so it would have been during Arrivals.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, because it would have been June. Yeah, June of 2020 was when it released.
Holy shit.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Then
I'm
that would
pretty
have been
sure it
Arrivals.
was.
Yeah.
Yep. So I usually took the like Kel Echo to be prophesizing Aramis. Like Aramis is going to
Right.
bring darkness
Yep.
to your world, like
And
in game and
I think we
otherwise.
talked about that at one point in time. Like that was kind of like the key idea that we kept kind of the fact that it was a female Elixni.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think you and I talked about this a bunch we really thought it was Aramis and that darkness is coming to the world. And then of course the next thing that happens was Beyond Light and Aramis brings darkness to the world. So yeah, it's yeah, maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe it's a
Yeah.
little bit of like because I mean we don't truly understand the nine. They may not be able to perceive time. Like
Yeah. We don't know. Like the nine already have such a hard time trying to comprehend our reality enough to like
yeah,
get thoughts across that yeah, who knows what their experience is like.
right.
And it
Like
could have been that the prophecy what was like not just a prophecy of the immediate but also the couple years in the future, and it's like, well,
right.
here's everything you need to worry about whether you pick up on it or not right away.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so I think totally possible. I will say the nine have been very
Oddly silent,
quiet.
right? Like that's
Yeah.
what the fuck is going on there? We literally I don't think we've heard from him since Prophecy.
I don't think so.
I mean, we have literally like they have been radio silence. Like they gave us the prophecy and was like, "All right, you do with that what you want. We're leaving you that like bye."
Yeah, which if anything, I would have expected to hear something from them during Season of the Wish, since they had such a
Sure.
tie to the Ahamkara once upon a time.
Sure.
But yeah, they've been kind of silent. Yeah, a little metagamey here. Maybe that's just a thread that Bungie's not really looking to pull on right now. But I do hope
It could be
that
something that they felt like maybe like prophecy kind of like summed up like that
maybe
was the end of
so.
it type thing.
Yeah, I would be kind of sad if that was the case, but yeah, I do hope we see more from the nine because it's just they're another really cool kind of mysterious nebulous
Yeah.
thing that is just like perfect for theory crafting around. So yeah,
I like mystery.
absolutely. Okay, so our next shout out here comes to us from Spotify via the comments there. And this one comes to us from Tim, who says, Spotify has finally allowed comments.
Yay.
I've been listening to you guys for a year or two now. I'm to the point where after I get caught up, I just go back and listen to my favorite episodes or start somewhere and just let it play. You guys do an amazing job.
Hell yeah.
Well, thank you. Say, I don't listen to us this much. Like,
I used to in the beginning. In the beginning, I would go back to like the next like after Myth would mix it and publish it and everything. I used to re-listen to ours pretty often, but yeah, I that's why I have a hard time remembering what I said because like I'll remember that we talked about something, but I won't remember exactly what the fuck we talked about or what we did. But I think for me that helps me like when we get new information about something, it helps me get more new theories out, and I don't
yeah,
hang on to old ideas.
yeah, you
So
don't have that idea kind of cemented already.
Yeah. Sometimes the idea is the same. Like sometimes it comes out the exact same, just worded
Sure.
slightly different. But for the most part, like I try to like keep fresh ideas going and fresh ideas moving. But no, I'm glad that you like us enough to listen to us multiple times. My wife
Yeah.
doesn't even like to listen to me multiple times, so
I say for me, I don't typically listen to them after I've published them because in a normal edit cycle, I've already listened to a majority of it, like
I'm gonna say like
over
you
and
already
over and over
yeah.
yeah, usually in like spans of 30-second to minute clips of me going back and being like, okay, does that cut, is that cut noticeable where I like cut a yawn out or something?
Yeah.
I
Or
so
like
yeah.
listening to us in like 6 times speed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Nope. That's I don't wish that on anyone. But thank
Uh,
you.
yes. So I'm glad somebody out there likes it, because by the time I'm done, I'm like, I don't need to hear this ever again. Oh, but all right. So our next shout out, and this will be the last one for this episode. Also comes to us from the Spotify comments from a Caesar, and they say, "Love you guys. You two help me get through my workday in this heat. Keep up the phenomenal work." So thank you.
I heat sucks.
I
I
was
now
gonna
know
say.
that. Running cables in ceilings of buildings that have no type of climate control that are freshly built, that shit sucks. I like it. Like I do truly like I know I've said this before, but in the last like 4 or 5 weeks now, I have become a real adult and I have acquired a career. Um uh so yeah, so I've been working again for the first time in like I don't know, fucking 8 years, 10 years. I'm not counting my year at GameStop. That was just its own version of suck. Uh, but no, like for the first time in like 10 or 15 years, I'm actually doing something again that I enjoy doing. Like I'm doing data cabling and stuff like that. But there are days that it sucks. Like now granted where I'm at, it's not too bad. We're starting to get to the cool down portion. So like our hottest day was like 89, but even that in a building that has like no heat, no AC, no nothing. The only
Still not
circulating
great.
air, it
Yeah.
sucks. Like the only circulating air you have is those huge fans that are on wheels and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the fact that you use us to get through heat, yeah, we may sound a little crazier than we actually are.
Yeah. If anything, you may sound more sane.
That might be. It might be an opposite effect for me.
Oh, but no, I'm glad that we can help you get through the day. And so
Yeah.
it's always nice to know that we're helping people out in whatever way that may be. So thank you. All right. Well, if you liked what you heard and you want to support us in some way, leave a review on your platform of choice, or share us with a friend who is also interested in the lore of the game of Destiny. If you feel strongly enough you want to leave a text review or a comment, please feel free to do so. We love seeing those. You can also reach us on Twitter at Missing Stories, missingstories@gmail.com for our email, or youtube.com/@missingstories, and you may see yourself as a future shout out.
Yeah. I don't know who to thank, Beth. Should I thank the inventor of Ethernet for making me pull all these goddamn cables?
For giving you a thing to do in the heat?
Give me a thing to do in the heat? Dicks. No, I don't know. I guess I'll just I don't know. I really don't know who to thank, Myth. I didn't invent anybody
You
this time.
didn't.
I'll thank
You could throw-
Failsafe, I guess.
There you go. That's a good one.
Thank you, Failsafe, for being yourself when you want to be. Go ahead and turn that what does she call it? I keep wanting to call it a profanity filter, but it's the opposite of a profanity filter.
Is it
politeness filter?
I think it's politeness filter.
Is that what it is?
I think
I don't know.
is.
Turn that off, Failsafe. Be you. Be the real you. Tell us that we're being stupid. I accept that.
Yep.
So yeah. All right. Anything else, Smith?
That's it.
All righty. Well, from all of us lore daddies to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next time.
You found your people. Guardians do love their myths and stories.